please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Mr. Mahindra, thank you. Always a pleasure to speak with you, and thank you for having me here. I'm told this is the first manufacturing plant, automobile manufacturing plant being set up in Detroit in the last 25 years.
By an OEM auto major, yes, that's quite remarkable,
what does this really mean? Why is it important for Mahindra to be present in Detroit?
You know, we first came here when we were really trying to enhance the competence of our R&D people. The thing about India is we have a huge reservoir of fresh and raw talent, a lot of talented young people. But in the auto industry, to top that up, you also need a lot of experience. One of the reasons why large global auto companies have a lead on us technologically was because of their engineering database, their experience over the years. So what happened very fortuitously was that during the recession in the US, a number of engineers in Detroit were laid off. And so suddenly you had a supply meets demand situation where what we had an insight about was that there is now a reservoir of experienced talent in Detroit which we can tap into. So most people who were looking at Detroit as a city in decline,
it was called the dead city for some time.
Quite to that contrary, we saw that as an opportunity. And to the credit of our R&D people, Rajan Vadera was in R&D at that time, and Rajan and Pawan requested Rick Haas, who had worked with us in Chennai in Mahindra Research Valley and had gone home. He said, why don't you set up something here? And so he went to work, rolled up his sleeves and located a number of people and got about 100 engineers to create Mahindra North American Technical Center. So we started by offshoring. And what I love about that story is it was India outsourcing to America.
That's right. So what does this mean now for you? Because you have said that you want to come in with an off-roader. And this also, Mr. Mahindra, gels in with what you've often said, that the future of mobility is such that the mass cars will become commoditized, right, and there is going to be people who will use cars more for recreational purposes.
Thank you for remembering that, yes.
So therefore it kind of gels in with that. But do we see Mahindra from there maybe even entering the mass market going forward?
Well, let's not call it the mass market. What the off-roader here could lead to is our presence in that lifestyle recreational SUV segment. We've had our sights on it. That's not something that is on the anvil right now, but we have been quite open to say that we might in fact look at SsangYong as a point of entry. So there are 3 points of entry potentially for Mahindra in the US. One is, of course, our core SUV off-road base. And very diligently, we've built on the Mahindra brand here with a solid now awareness of our tractor brand. The tractor company then introduced the Retriever brand of ATVs, which you see outside. On top of that, we will be building this off-roader, which frankly is going to be highly differentiated and way beyond its competition in the field. So the next logical step could be certainly to go on to on-road SUVs. As far as what you call the mass market, I call the fleet or the commute market. I did say in India that Mahindra is participating in that as well. And you might recall I said very confidently that that is going to be all electric very soon. So being in the electric mobility market, there's no reason why Mahindra cannot enter into the electric vehicle market in the US too.
And I ask you that question also because very recently you have stitched an alliance, a global pact of sorts with Ford Motor Company. And I'm guessing you could also leverage that to make inroads. I mean, is that also part of your thinking when you say that you would be...
Well, let me be very frank. When we started the dialogue with Ford, the prime focus really was India and emerging markets, and to see how Mahindra and Ford can work together in a better manner to cope with the unpredictability of the world of mobility. How do we strengthen both our product offerings in India and in emerging markets? So that is really the current focus of the alliance and the talk. However, we have introduced as well the topic of mobility, shared mobility, and of electrification. And if the alliance gets stronger, there's no reason why two companies cannot explore what other synergies there are for each other around the globe.
You know, there's also interestingly, when I was speaking with some of your executives here at Mahindra, United States, and they were telling me that how M&M has also been shortlisted as one of the top 4 or 5 players to supply to the US Postal Service. Could you just expand and throw some light on that?
You know,
and how big is the order, Mr. Mahindra?
Frankly, it's a very large order. It's 180,000 vehicles that they're looking for, but we are not allowed to talk much more about it than to say that we are amongst the shortlisted 5. It is clearly very exciting. All I can tell you is that why Mahindra? Well, you know, I didn't know until the team here started bidding for the order that postal trucks in the US are right-hand drive, and they're diesel.
Oh, wow.
So guess who understands what right-hand drive diesel vehicles work like? And in a sense, therefore, there's a natural fit. But beyond that, I'm not really at liberty to say any more about where the contract is at this point in time.
Could you also tell me a little bit about the kind of investments that you've made for this? It's quite the salubrious facility that you've set up here. So what is the kind of money that you've put in?
Cumulatively, if you look at the money that we have put into Detroit, both in the former MNATC and Manor now, as it's called, Mahindra Automotive North America, it's about $230 million odd. And by 2020, we expect to add another 400 million to that. So we will be looking really at $600 to $800 million of investment in a very short order. In terms of people, employment, at the beginning of 2016, we had about 75 people. That's tripled to 250 people. By the end of January, I think we'll be at 250. And again, there we expect to add about 400 more people. So it's a fairly sizable investment for America.
And considering, as I said, as I started the interview by saying the first manufacturing automotive plant being set up, and that too by an Indian company, I think it's quite a source of pride, I think, for a lot of us. Tell me also about the futures. You've said that electric mobility, and you could look at sort of using that as a platform to also enter the market. So where do you see the US market in the next 5 to 7 years?
You know, the US market is going to move much more quickly than developing markets towards autonomous vehicles. Even that is not very clear. I think autonomous vehicles will first and foremost ply in designated areas like shuttles. But there's a tremendous economic push towards autonomous vehicles here because, to be honest, the major provider, Uber, as you well know, doesn't make money yet. It doesn't make money because of the operating cost of vehicles, which includes the driver. The driver, in fact, is the highest cost of the vehicle. So for them, having an autonomous vehicle is like the holy grail.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's going to be an enormous commercial pressure for technology of autonomous driving. That will happen faster here. And that will therefore certainly